Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Now it's recording. And just want to make a correction that our recording device malfunctioned. And we said the prayer for the bread and the wine, and it did not record. So we're sorry for that. And we'll go into a better explanation of what we've done. So you'll know that. We're so sorry that you missed the blessing for the bread and the wine. But as we explained before, God created everything there is in 6 days. And he rested. He ceased from creation on the seventh day. And so when Israel was in the wilderness, God told them to collect manna every day of the week. And if they held any over, it would spoil. So on the sixth day, God commanded that they collect twice as much so that they would not have to go out on the seventh day. And as John is fond of saying,
the seventh day is on God.
And so this is why we celebrate the seventh day Sabbath, in order to be obedient to God, to what he is doing. And this parsha for the week, the Jewish people around the world in the synagogues divide the Torah into parshas, or portions. And in Israel, they're a parsha ahead of us. But outside in the diaspora, the parsha is entitled Behaalotekha, when you set up. And it's taken from Numbers 8, 1 through 12, 16. And in my Torah, as we will usually tell you, I have a Torah, and they divide that up so that it's a little more manageable when we're reading and then when we study it. So in my Torah, it's divided into, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. The first part being bring the Levites before the community, or priestly and princely and priestly things, excuse me. Numbers 8, 1 through 26. The second part is entitled the second Passover, the cloud, the silver trumpets. Numbers 9, 1 through 10, 10. The third part is entitled of rebels and prophets. Numbers 10, 11 through 11:35. And the last, the fourth, is entitled of prophecy and punishment. Numbers 12, 1 through 16. And usually that's the way we'll go at it, by using my Torah, where it's really divided so that we can make it a little more manageable. And so we stop after each section and we will discuss it. And we welcome those who are new among our followers. We are so happy to have so many new followers, and we thank you for being around our Shabbat table, where we are being ministered to by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, B'Shem, in the name of Yeshua, in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. And we are so happy that you're joining us. And may the Holy Spirit impart many things to you as he will to us. So we start out with the first part from Numbers 8, 1 through 26, princely and priestly things. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and say to him, when you mount the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the lampstand." Aaron did so. He mounted the lamps at the front of the lampstand, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, this is how the lampstand was made. It was hammered work of gold, hammered from base to pedal, according to the pattern that the Lord had shown Moses. So was the lampstand made. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the Levites from among the Israelites and cleanse them. This is what you shall do to them to cleanse them. Sprinkle on them water of purification, and let them go over the whole body with a razor, and wash their clothes. Thus they shall be cleansed. Let them take a bull of the herd and with it a meal offering of choice flour with the oil mixed in. And you take a second bull of the herd for a sin offering. You shall bring the Levites forward before the tent of the meeting. Assemble the whole Israelite community, and bring the Levites forward before the Lord. Let the Israelites lay their hands upon the Levites, and let Aaron designate the Levites before the Lord as a wave offering from the Israelites, that they may perform the service of the Lord. The Levites shall now lay their hands upon the heads of the bulls. One shall be offered to the Lord as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering, to make expiation for the Levites. And you shall place the Levites in attendance upon Aaron and his sons, and designate them as a wave offering to the Lord. Thus you shall set the Levites apart from among the Israelites, and the Levites shall be mine. Thereafter the Levites shall be qualified for the service of the tent of meeting, once you have been cleansed them, and designate them as a wave offering, for they are formally assigned to me from among the Israelites. I have taken them for myself, in place of all the first issue of the womb, of the firstborn of the Israelites. For every firstborn among the Israelites, man as well as beast, is mine. I consecrate them to myself at the time that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt. Now I take the Levites instead of every firstborn of the Israelites, and from among the Israelites I formally assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons to perform the service for the Israelites in the tent of meeting, and to make expiation for the Israelites, so that no plague may afflict the Israelites for coming too near the sanctuary. Moses, Aaron, and the whole Israelite community did with the Levites accordingly, just as the Lord had commanded Moses in regard to the Levites, so the Israelites did with them. The Levites purified themselves and washed their clothes, and Aaron designated them as a wave offering before the Lord. And Aaron made expiation for them to cleanse them. Thereafter the Levites were qualified to perform their service in the tent of meeting, under Aaron and his sons, as the Lord had commanded Moses in regard to the Levites, so they did to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This is the rule for the Levites. From 25 years of age up, they shall participate in the workforce, in the service of the tent of meeting. But at the age of 50, they shall retire from the workforce, and shall serve no more. They may assist their brother Levites at the tent of meeting by standing guard, but they shall perform no labor. Thus you shall deal with the Levites in regard to their duties. John?
Okay. This is, I think I'll do the end of it first, where the Levites were picked as for the divine service in the temple. Now, this was first going to go to all the firstborns of Israel, but God changed plans and selected all of the Levites, and this is their dedication. A couple of interesting parts here. Their age would be 25 years and upwards. Another place said they would be 30 years old and upwards. And the reason how the sages explain this discrepancy of 5 years, it says here that they 20 upward, they shall go in they were going into a waiting state for the service. The way they explain it says basically they went to school to learn how to learn their duties of the divine service. It's almost like going to college for 4 years, and the 5th year you get your master's degree, as they call it. So this is when they go into school to learn how to do the divine service. Once they know how it's done, then they, for lack of a better word, they get a job doing the divine service, and at the age of 50 they kind of retire, but they are not involved in the divine service any longer, but they do other things. Some say, well, they do gatekeeping. They lock up the gates and do other miscellaneous things. But they're not involved in the divine service um, at the age of 50. So, one other's a comment um, about this service as to what they do. It's what comment that I put down here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it said, um, oh, I don't see. Well, I'm not sure where I put it now.
Mm-hmm.
But this had to do with once they reach the age of 50, they would go back into working with ordinary people. Sometimes you can be so close and so much of a fanatic in your divine service, you forget about ordinary people.
Right.
So here, um, this puts them back into the position and working with ordinary people, and perhaps even helping the new people who are working in the divine service. But it's the idea of, I think I've heard the expression, you're so
Heavily minded.
yeah,
You're
heavily
not
minded.
good.
Yeah, heavily minded, no earthly good. So this is to just to check them to get back into reality. And all of our service isn't divine service.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our service is just taking out the trash,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And
Yes.
this is what we kind of forget. Certain jobs are not beneath us. And once you get so heavenly minded, you think of, oh no, I'm doing God's work,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have time for anything else but
Mm-hmm.
God's work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other part of interest here, and how the teachers teach this, as far as Aaron is concerned, and lighting of the lampstand, that Aaron group, the Levites, did not bring a dedication offering for the tabernacle. The other tribes, 12 tribes, did, but they did not. So, as compensation, or because Aaron didn't have anything to give and he really wanted to, God let him light the menorah,
Mm-hmm.
which would be greater than all the gifts that the other guys have brought, even though their name got listed, because people still light they lit the menorah for hundreds and hundreds of years, and people even light it even nowadays. Now this is different from the Hanukkah candle, but this is the menorah, and it has to do with lighting of Torah, bringing light into the world and
Yes.
into darkness,
Yes.
which is greater than the accomplishment, than the gifts that were given by the prior 12 tribes. But these, I think that's the only two things I have.
Okay.
The other thing, they were dedicating the Levites for the service in the tabernacle.
Okay. And we move on. The second part in my Torah is the second Passover, the cloud, the silver trumpets. This is from Numbers 9:1 through 10:10, and it reads, "The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai on the first new moon of the second year, following the exodus from the land of Egypt, saying, Let the Israelites people offer the Passover sacrifice at its set time. You shall offer it on the 14th day of this month at twilight. At its set time you shall offer it in accordance with all its rules and rites." Moses instructed the Israelites to offer the Passover sacrifice, and they offered the Passover sacrifice in the first month on the 14th day of the month at twilight in the wilderness of Sinai, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So the Israelites did. But there were some men who were unclean by reason of a corpse, and could not offer the Passover sacrifice on that day. Appearing that same day before Moses and Aaron, those men said to them, Unclean though we are by reason of a corpse, why must we be disbarred from presenting the Lord's offering at its set time with the rest of the Israelites? Moses said to them, Stand by and let me hear what instructions the Lord gives you. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people, saying, When any of you or any of your posterity who are defiled by a corpse or on a long journey would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, they shall offer it in the 2nd month on the 14th day of the month at twilight. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall not leave any of it over until morning. They shall not break a bone of it. They shall offer it in a strict accord with the law of the Passover sacrifice. But if a man who is clean and not on a journey refrains from offering the Passover sacrifice, that person shall be cut off from his kin, for he did not present the Lord's offering at a set time. That man shall bear his guilt. And when a stranger who resides with you would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, he must offer it in accordance with the rules and rites of the Passover sacrifice. There shall be one law for you, whether a stranger or a citizen of the country. On the day that the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the pact, and in the evening it rested over the tabernacle in the likeness of fire until morning. It was always so. The cloud covered it, appearing as fire by night. And whenever the cloud lifted from the tent, the Israelites would set out accordingly. And whenever the cloud lifted before the tent, the Israelites would set out accordingly, and at the spot where the cloud settled, there the Israelites would make camp. On a sign from the Lord, the Israelites broke camp, and on a sign from the Lord they made camp. They remained encamped as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. When the cloud lingered over the tabernacle many days, the Israelites observed the Lord's mandate and did not journey on. And at such time as the cloud rested over the tabernacle for a few days, they remained encamped on a sign from the Lord, and broke camp on a sign from the Lord. And at such times as the cloud stayed from the evening until morning, they broke camp as soon as the cloud lifted in the morning. Day or night, whenever the cloud lifted, they would break camp. Whether it was 2 days or a month or a year, however long the cloud lingered over the tabernacle, the Israelites remained in camp and did not set out. Only when it lifted did they break camp. On a sign from the Lord they made camp, and on a sign from the Lord they broke camp. They observed the Lord's mandate at the Lord's bidding through Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Have 2 silver trumpets made. Make them of hammered work. They shall serve you to summon the community and to set the divisions in motion. When both are blown in long blasts, the whole community shall assemble before you at the entrance of the tent of the meeting. And if only one is blown, the chieftains, heads of Israel's contingents, shall assemble before you. But when you sound short blasts, the divisions encamped on the east shall move forward. And when you sound short blasts a second time, those encamped on the south shall move forward. Thus short blasts shall be blown for setting them in motion. While to convoke the congregation you shall blow long blasts, not short ones. The trumpet shall be blown by Aaron's sons, the priests. This shall be for you an institution for all time throughout the ages. When you are at war in your own land against an aggressor who attacks you, you shall sound short blasts on the trumpets, that you may be remembered before the Lord your God and be delivered from your enemies. And on your joyous occasion, your fixed festivals, your new moons, days, you shall sound the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over your sacrifices of well-being. They shall be a reminder of you before the Lord your God. I, the Lord, am your God. John?
Okay. Maybe I'll start at the beginning here, at the chapter 9, where it speaks of this is the first Passover in the wilderness, and it's being instituted, and they should observe it when they enter the promised land. But some of the teachers give the impression that they only observed it this one time,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't tell. Perhaps that's true. Perhaps it was more than one time. But they were to. This is the institution of observing the Passover for all generations. And there was one group of men who could not observe it because they were unclean. Now, there's, I guess, some debate. Some say they were unclean because they moved Aaron's two sons' body during the dedication. And then some say, well, these people were unclean because they were the ones carrying Joseph's body from Egypt. So I'm not sure which is which. I'm tempted to think that, well, it could be both. It may have been both. But since they were not moving, they were situated for almost a year, almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they would have to move Joseph's body if they were in a fixed position. So I'm more inclined to think it was Aaron's two sons that made them unclean. So what happened? Moses had a problem. He didn't know what the answer was. So what did he do? He went to God for an answer.
Yes.
And God instituted the second Passover a month later for those who could not participate, and there were certain restrictions and requirements. Also was set up the requirements for those who were strangers in the country and those who were not in the country. There were still restrictions and guidelines for it, but the idea of some people call this a second chance. These guys really, really wanted to be part of the community.
Right.
And through no fault of their own, they were not allowed to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So God gives them a second chance. So perhaps this is the idea of second chances to participate. And apparently that pleased them. The other thing of interest I wanted to mention was God wanted Moses to make 2 trumpets.
Mm-hmm.
And these trumpets, one teacher says, well, these are trumpets for Moses, but Moses didn't blow them. He gave them to Aaron. Aaron kids blew the trumpets, and they were for various events that would happen to them. And the idea is these were Moses' trumpets. They weren't Joshua's trumpets. The idea is that Joshua would have to have his own trumpets made up, because each leader speaks to the group in a different way, with a different sound and a different attitude. So each leader would be making their own trumpets. They were alarms for war and celebration, called certain groups together based on the sound.
Mm-hmm.
We think there may have been, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million people, and some estimate that it may have taken up something like 2 square miles. And I think to myself, my goodness, how can one trumpet blast so well that could cover miles? But
that they were here.
And well, actually, it was an open ground, so perhaps the sound would travel a little bit further. Not like there were no trees to absorb the sounds or anything like that. So it perhaps it makes sense. It's got good lungs. They can blow it pretty good. But these were individual trumpets made for Moses. Any other leader would make his own set of trumpets, and he would sound the alarm that way. And That's all I have.
But I wanted to point out in verse 14, which is very interesting, and it says, when a stranger who resides with you would offer a Passover offering to the Lord in accordance with the rules, there should be one law for you, whether a stranger or a citizen. So I think that's very interesting, that the stranger residing obeyed these laws. So there's no difference,
Right.
which I think speaks to us today. Again, if we are a part of the commonwealth of the house of Israel, there's one law that we follow, and that this the laws from the Torah. And also, the trumpets, the sounding of the trumpets, I thought was very interesting, because we know that the Yom Teruah is Rosh Hashanah, when the ultimate trumpet sounds. And Christians often talk about the rapture. Well, when they wanted to gather the whole community together, they sounded a long blast.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because that's the name of Rosh Hashanah, a lot of scholars believe that's when the Lord will return, because it will be a long trumpet blast. And that's the name of the holiday. It's Rosh Hashanah, yes, but it's also Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets. So I thought that was very interesting, something that we need to consider and study, because again, if there's one law for the stranger and the citizen, then we probably need to start studying these feasts and laws to determine just what our Lord is talking about. So I find this probably the two most interesting things for me in this particular portion, in this section. We'll go on to the third part of rebels and prophets, and that's Numbers 10:11 through 11:35, and it reads, hold on a minute, a little bit long. In the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, the cloud lifted from the tabernacle of the pact, and the Israelites set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai. The cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. When the march was to begin, as the Lord bidding through Moses, the first standard to set out, troop by troop, was the divisions of Judah. In command of its troop was Nachshon, son of Aminadab. In command of the tribal troop of Issachar, Nathanael, son of Zuar. And in command of the tribal troop of Zebulun, Eliab, son of Helon. Then the tabernacle will be taken apart, and the Gershonites and the Merarites who carried the tabernacle would set out. The next standard to set out, troop by troop, was the division of Reuben. In command of its troops was Elizur, son of Shedior. The command of the second troop was Simeon, Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. And in command of the tribal troop of Gad, Eliasaph, son of Deuel. Then the Kohathites, who carried the sacred objects, would set out, and by the time they arrived, the tabernacle would be set up again. The next standard to set out, troop by troop, was the divisions of Ephraim. In command of its troop was Elishama, son of Amihud. In command of the tribal troop of Manasseh, Gamaliel, son of Pedazur. In command of the tribal troop of Benjamin, Abidan, son of Gideoni. Then, as the rear guard of all the divisions, the standard of the divisions of Dan would set out troop by troop. In command of its troop was Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai. In command of the tribal troop of Asher, Pagael, son of Akron. And in command of the tribal troop of Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. Such was the Israelites' order of march, as they marched troop by troop. Moses said to Hobab, son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, We're setting out for the place of which the Lord has said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will be generous with you, for the Lord has promised to be generous to Israel. I will not go, he replied to him, but will return to my native land. He said, please do not leave us, inasmuch as you know where we should camp in the wilderness, and can be our guide. So if you come with us, we will extend to you the same bounty that the Lord grants us. They marched from the mountain of the Lord a distance of 3 days. The ark of the covenant of the Lord traveled in front of them on 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place for them. And the Lord's cloud kept above them by day as they moved on from camp. When the ark was set out, Moses would say, advance, O Lord. May your enemies be scattered, and may your foes flee before you. And when it halted, he would say, return, O Lord, you who are Israel's myriads of thousands. The people took to complaining bitterly before the Lord. The Lord heard and was incensed. A fire of the Lord broke out against them, ravaging the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses. Moses prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. That place was named Taberach, because a fire of the Lord had broken out against them. The riffraff in their midst felt a gluttonous craving, and the Israelites moreover wept and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Now our gullets are shriveled. There is nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and in color it was like bebulim. The people would go about and gather it, grind it between millstones, or pound it in a mortar, boil it in a pot, or make it into cakes. It tasted like rich cream. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall upon it. Moses heard the people weeping, every clan apart, each person at the entrance of his tent. And the Lord was very angry, and Moses was distressed. And Moses said to the Lord, why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have I not enjoyed your favor, that you have laid the burden of all this people upon me? Did I conceive all this people? Did I bear them, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries an infant to the land that you have promised on oath to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people, when they whine before me and say, give us meat to eat? I cannot carry all this people by myself, for it is too much for me. If you would deal thus with me, kill me rather, I beg you, and let me see no more of my wretchedness. Then the Lord said to Moses, gather for me 70 of Israel's elders, of whom you have experience as elders and officers of the people, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them take their place with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will draw upon the Spirit that is on you, and put it upon them. They shall share the burden of the people with you, and you shall not bear it alone. And say to the people, be ready for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat, for you have kept whining before the Lord, and saying, if only we had meat to eat. Indeed, we were better off in Egypt. The Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. You shall eat not 1 day, not 2, not even 5 days or 10 or 20, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you. For you have rejected the Lord who is among you by whining before him and saying, oh, why did we ever leave Egypt? But Moses said, the people who are with me number 600,000 men. Yet you say, I will give them enough meat to eat for a whole month. Could enough flocks and herds be slaughtered to suffice them? Or could all the fish of the sea be gathered for them to suffice them? And the Lord answered Moses, is there a limit to the Lord's power? You shall soon see whether what I have said happens to you or not. And Moses went out and reported the words of the Lord to the people. He gathered 70 of the people's elders and stationed them around the tent. Then the Lord came down in a cloud and spoke to him. He drew upon the spirit that was on him and put it upon the 70 elders. And when the spirit rested upon them, they spoke in ecstasy, but did not continue. 2 men, one Eldad and the other Medad, had remained in the camp. Yet the spirit rested upon them. They were among those recorded, but they had not gone out to the tent, and they spoke in ecstasy in the camp. A youth ran and told Moses, saying, Eldad and Medad are acting the prophet in the camp. And Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' attendant from his youth, spoke up and said, My lord Moses, restrain them. But Moses said to him, Are you wrought up on my account? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord put his spirit upon them. Moses then re-entered the camp, and together with the elders of Israel, a wind from the Lord started up, swept quail from the sea, and strewed them over the camp, about a day's journey on this side, and a day's journey on that side, all around the camp, and some 2 cubits deep in the ground. The people sat together in quail all that day and night, and all that day and night, even he who gathered least had 10 homers, and they spread them out all around the camp. The meat was still between their teeth, not yet chewed, when the anger of the Lord blazed forth against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very severe plague, and the place was named Kibroth Ha-Ta'ava, because the people who had the craving were buried there. Then the people set out from Kibroth Ha-Ta'ava for Hazeroth. John?
Okay. This is a terrible time for Moses.
Yes.
A very bad time. So what is going on here? This is Moses who actually saw earlier. He had the problem with the two men who wanted to, the men who had a question about Passover, not being able to celebrate it, and Moses went to God for it. This is the same Moses that helped in the division of the Red Sea, the plagues, the miracles, the building of the tents, and all these other things. And in most of them he would go to God for an answer. But not this time. And I'm not sure I understand why Moses didn't do that. But Moses just, how should I say it, saw himself as failing? Or this is a situation where Moses felt helpless. He just didn't know what to do. And the interesting thing about this situation is it's not about food per se, it's about meat.
Right.
So what did I say? He realized he didn't have the power to solve this. And he was still looking to himself to bring it about.
Right.
And one teacher writes that everyone reaches a point in life where they feel that things are beyond their power to accomplish. They couldn't do it. And this has to do with meat. It was not a legitimate complaint. They had food, they had water, they had everything they need, but this was not a legitimate complaint. Some other times when they didn't have water, okay, that's legit. This was not a legitimate complaint, and that's what made God angry with them. So what did he say he was going to do? Well, as I said earlier, even with the bread from heaven, Moses was involved in that. The bread, the water, the wars when they had to fight the Amorites, the Midianites. Well, I forget the group's name now. And there were other rebellions, and he had to deal with that. But this time was different. It had to do with meat. So, this type of situation happens to all of us. there's a point in life where a situation comes along and we think we can't handle it. And we forget one big thing. And the thing we forget is we're not God.
No.
No. And we may be doing a lot of powerful things to God.
Yeah.
Moses talked with God.
Yeah.
God talked with him. And perhaps he thought that, oh, he can solve any situation he
Right.
was, but he didn't.
Right.
He cannot
Right.
fix every accomplishment.
Right.
We're not God, and only God can do it.
Right.
And God also said He will give them so much meat,
Yes.
it will make them.
Yes.
Actually, it will make them sick,
Yes.
and they will even hate the idea of meat. And this is what happened. They got so much sick. They were sick. Some of them even died from it. But the idea here is with Moses and with us. There will come times when we're going to be a little disappointed because there are certain things we're not going to be able to accomplish, and that's the time we remember we're not God. Also, the interesting part here, this speaks of Moses' father-in-law.
Yes.
He tried to ask them to stay with him, but here you don't get the idea of whether or not the father-in-law consented. Other places you get the idea where he didn't consent. He went back to Midian, or maybe he went somewhere else, but he didn't go in the promised land with them. I don't know. Sometimes I think that he didn't tell the whole story of God and what God can do and what God was like.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's got a better idea, and he wanted to tell the people that he only told part of the story to. He wanted to tell them the rest of the story. So that's why I'm tempted to say he didn't go with them. But I think that's all I have for that.
Well, what I find astounding is that the Israelites were complaining about all the good things they had back in Egypt.
Oh yeah.
It's extraordinary that
Yeah.
I mean that in Egypt they were crying out to the Lord for deliverance.
Right.
But yet after they've been freed and now they said, oh, we have such good things to eat there and let's go back and they still have the mind of a slave.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
telling you about a story, and maybe you remember that, and I hope I remember. It's about the mindset of a slave. One of the reasons that God took them the long way is to get rid of that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
That as long as they had the mindset of a slave, they saw that, and I guess they still have that. So you see that here when they were looking back over the good things they had there, not remembering that they were sorely oppressed.
Mm-hmm. And they probably didn't eat that good.
No.
Either.
No,
Mm-hmm.
didn't eat that good. And so here we have this the story of all the complaints and the and it's something else I want to, let's see if I can find it really quick. But that astounded me. And there were let's see, people took to complain. Okay, heard, and okay, took the complaining, and then they talk about there's nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look at. My gosh, this manna was something new. It was evidently it was so exquisite, and that you could make it into anything you wanted to. But yet they complain that it's nothing but this manna that God created for them, basically, to sustain them in the wilderness. It was so miraculous that, remember, on the sixth day they gathered twice as much and it didn't spoil. So whatever this manna is, it was a miraculous food, but yet they weren't satisfied with this new food that God had given to sustain them. So I found that very, very interesting, and we can probably bring it into today's time, where God has provided so much for us, but we always look at what we don't have as opposed to what we have, and that's our mistake. We're always constantly, I think, throughout mankind, it's always looking. It says the grass is always greener on the other side. Look what I had before, as opposed to being thankful for what you have now and being blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Thankful, blessed. Okay, so the last part is entitled "A Prophecy and Punishment." It's Numbers 12, 1 through 16. And when they were in Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. He married a Cushite woman, they said. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? The Lord heard it. Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any other man on earth. Suddenly the Lord called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "Come out, you three, to the tent of the meeting." So the three of them went out. The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, stopped at the entrance of the tent, and called out, "Aaron and Miriam." The two of them came forward, and he said, "Hear these my words. When a prophet of the Lord arises among you, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is trusted throughout my household. With him I speak mouth to mouth, plainly and not in riddles, and he beholds the likeness of the Lord. How then did you not shrink from speaking against my servant Moses?" Still incensed with them, the Lord departed. As the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam stricken with snow-white scales. When Aaron turned toward Miriam, he saw that she was stricken with scales. And Aaron said to Moses, "O my Lord, account not to us the sin which was committed in our folly. Let her not be as one dead, who emerges from her mother's womb with half his flesh eaten away." So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "O God, pray heal her." But the Lord said to Moses, "If her father spat in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and then let her be readmitted." So Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and the people did not march on until Miriam was readmitted. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and encamped in the wilderness of Paran.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm tempted to say that that Moses, when Moses asked his father-in-law to go with him, he didn't go with him, and I'm tempted to say his wife didn't go with him either, because he marries another woman. His wife may have passed away, hard to say, but he marries another woman, and the issue is that Miriam and Aaron, well, they got a problem with this woman, and they didn't like her. And another thing is introduced in here, in the second verse, that has to do with prophecy. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there has to be something related, not just the marriage, but something about who has control over prophecy. I don't know if the new wife was prophesying or anything like that, but I think they're related somehow. And the comment I did write, it said Miriam and Aaron did not like something about Moses' wife. They didn't like the fact that his wife was Ethiopian, and somehow linked this to his exclusive. It linked it to his exclusive control over prophecy, and interaction with God. So, because it does say, they said, "Have God indeed spoken only only by Moses. So,
Mhm.
and this Ethiopian woman is named in the previous part. So God gets involved here, and He tells them, He kind of straightens them out. There's a unique relationship between God and Moses.
Right. He
And
speaks to him face to face, he said.
right, exactly.
Not in riddles like with others, face to face.
Right. And I have wrote this note in the Bible that what Aaron and I should say Miriam and Aaron's engaged in is slander,
Evil speak.
evil speak. Yeah.
Which we can, right here, let's talk about that, because one Parsha, when it talked about evil speak, and it talked about what's the, oh gosh, now what's the disease?
Leprosy.
Leprosy.
Yeah.
That it was a result of evil speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was a result of, and we talked about that at length when we were talking about it during one of the Torah portions. That leprosy comes about as a result of
Right.
evil speak.
Right. But now this wasn't a disease because
I
understand that's
Right.
That's what we translated to.
Right.
By staying away for 7 days and you come back, I don't know. There's no 7-day diseases, but this is evil speak, and
Evil
this
speak.
was the punishment. Some say this punishment. They call it a punishment. I'm doing some trying to differentiate between the word punishment and consequences.
Right.
This is I think our handout even said punishment. Maybe even the verbiage said punishment. But this was a consequence of evil speak. I don't hope I'm not splitting hairs either. They would have to wait 7 days. Why it didn't happen to Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's because Aaron was a priest at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Since they both went,
Right.
maybe Miriam just took him along, and it's hard to say.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's all I have for that.
All right.
That this was about evil speak, where
Right.
there was something about this new wife and prophecy that got them, that rattled, that upset them the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But God had to tell them that Moses has a unique relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and they shouldn't. You're in the wrong, and there's nothing wrong with the relationship that Moses has with me, and his wife shouldn't be a part of it.
Right. Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have.
Okay, very good. We've come to the end of another Torah portion, and just before we close out, I want to get my ducks in a row here and let you know what the next week Torah portion is about. Yes, I think I have it here. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 14, 1, 2 parts looks like. It looks like next week's Torah portion is divided into 2 parts. But the next week's Torah portion is Shalach Lecha, and it's taken from Numbers 13:1 through 15:41. And let me make sure the Shalach Lecha, the first part is Numbers 13:1 through 14:45, trial and condemnation, and the second part is entitled Various Laws and Fringes, and that's from Numbers 15, 1 through 41. And it begins, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, שלח לך אנשים וידרו את ארץ כנען אשר אני נותן לבני ישראל איש אחד למטה אבותיו תשלחו כל נשי בהם. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Send men to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelite people. Send one man from each of their ancestral tribes, each one a chieftain among them. This is very interesting. This is pivotal right here in the next Torah portion. So we should look forward to this next. And remember that the community in the diaspora outside of Israel are a parsha behind. We will catch up though before the end of the High Holy Days. We will catch up. So, anything you'd like to add, John? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. So, just before we were getting ready to start our studies and everything, I heard this song, and it's written by Pastor Jack Hayford by Church on the Way. I think he was a member of church, pastor of Church on the Way. And the song is entitled Majesty, Worship His Majesty. And I thought that was so eloquent when I heard it. At one time we went to hear oh gosh, and I forgot his name. We went to hear him, and they had a orchestra playing this song. Oh, John, what is his name?
Where was it?
We went to I think to Lakeland to hear him. And his name is
I can't remember.
Not Jack Hayford. Oh, not Swindoll. You used to listen to him a lot.
It was a singing group?
No, a minister.
Oh, Garner Ted Armstrong.
No. He's oh, how bad of me to not remember his name, because I remember when we went to see him, they had an orchestra playing this song, and it was so beautiful. And I could hear his name now, hear his voice, and
Yeah, well, it'll come to you.
yeah, it covered. But anyway, we were gonna sing this song. And before we get to singing, I may remember his name. So we'll start this song. It's not that long. Majesty, worship His Majesty. Unto Jesus all glory, honor, and praise. Majesty, kingdom, authority, flow through His throne unto His own, His anthem reigns. So exalt, lift up on high the name of Jesus. Magnify, come glorify Christ Jesus the King. Majesty, worship His Majesty. Jesus who died, now glorified, King of all kings. Majesty, worship His Majesty. Unto Jesus be all glory, honor, and praise. Majesty, authority. For from his throne unto his own his anthem raised. So exalt, lift up on high the name of Jesus. Magnify, come glorify Christ Jesus the King. Majesty, worship his majesty. Jesus who died, now glorified, King of all kings. And we do worship him. He is King of kings, Lord of lords, and he is soon to return. And we honor him, and we honor his father, the King of glory, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, by honoring the seventh-day Sabbath and sitting at his feet, preparing a feast that he has provided so that we don't have to go out on the seventh day to earn it in order to prepare it. We're not slaves any longer. Slaves work 7 days a week. We're not slaves. So God has said to set aside the seventh day, to sit at his feet, to be restored from the week that we have experienced. Because as we go forward waiting on the Lord Jesus to return, that we will be stressed on all sides. That each week will be full of so much, and we will need the seventh day in order to rejuvenate, in order to just gain back what we need in order for the next week. And so that's why we stop what we're doing. We sit at this table, this feast that the Lord has provided, this sumptuous feast that he has provided, and we eat from it, and we listen to him, and we plug into him, and we receive his words. That's what we're doing. And we thank God. We hope that those who are out there who are listening to us, that you too will observe the seventh-day Sabbath, because it is a time set aside by the King of the universe, and he keeps the appointment whether we keep it or not. It is an appointment, and we urge you to keep the appointment with him. We urge you, because he's always there. He's always going to keep his appointments. And so we urge you to keep the appointment with him, because he has something special to convey to you during this appointment. If you were meeting with an earthly king, you would surely be on time. You would be dressed to the nines, as they say. That's a term. You would be dressed in your finest apparel. Or if you were serving earthly king food, you would have the finest of foods. Your best tablecloth, the best that you could provide, you would present it. And we are not serving an earthly king. It is a heavenly king who created everything that there is. And so we set out the best that what we have, our tablecloth, our silverware, everything, even the food, it's sumptuous, things that we don't usually eat during the week, because the King of the universe is coming. He is here. He is here with us at this table tonight. We thank him for being with us. We thank him for being with us all this Shabbat, and just being with us and rejuvenating us from what we have been depleted of during this week. So we say,
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shavuot Tov.
Amen, amen. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. I'm also waiting to sing the song of. I'm also waiting, sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is
Oh, world is waiting. Sing songs.